And it looks like the Europeans managed to win that second match by 1 resource point. Would you say that's correct, Sally?
I haven't actually seen it on any of the streams yet, unfortunately. But being that close, I mean, the next match is going to be the most interesting because they may. Well, I mean, the first ones are whitewashed. The second one, close dead heat, so are we going to get whitewashed the other way? As everyone starts to comfort and get in their comfort zones.
Yeah, it's being incredibly tight. So, bearing in mind this is a best of 5 tournament, we're already seeing the EU 2-0 up. The US really need to win this third match if they're going to try and stay in the game. Otherwise, that's it. But it's extraordinary how they've managed to go from almost complete defeat to almost drawing level and taking it right to the wire. Do you think that was the change in team composition that really drew that?
I would think so. I mean, the winning team tends to not change their comp at all, because it won. So it'd be interesting to see if they kept the same comps. But it could have. I didn't see more of anything in particular. I think the support side in the EU seemed to be on their job, because you've seen a lot of the EU people get in heals. So
yeah, that was quite a surprising thing. It was interesting that the US went for controlling 2 capture points and really trying to lock down those, whereas the EU was still battling with trying to kill more ships and going for the secondary way of really trying to dominate that map. So although the EU managed to get more kills, it balanced out with that whole resource control versus killing ships balance there. And it just goes to show that you need to be good at both. You can't rely on one strategy or the other in order to win that particular match.
I think there's a new matchup. Okay. Yeah, I'm watching RMTZ stream as well, and it seems there is a match up, but I don't know if everyone's in it or not.
Okay, so I think we're experiencing a couple of technical hitches, but apparently match 3 has started. We'll wait to hear from our colleagues behind the scenes as to how things are triggering there.
Yeah, if it's match 3, it's another control match. At present, EU are holding 2 points over the US's 1. The resources are pretty much neck and neck again.
Okay, we will try and get the video back to you as soon as we can.
Yeah, if the chat channel wants to ask questions of us, since we can't really commentate on the match, feel free to pipe up any questions. I'm sure Gazimov can answer them with his personal experience, and I can try and put my 2-bit in, I suppose.
I will do my best to answer any questions that people might have while we try to get the streams back for you. So one of the questions in the chat as commentators, what would you like to see to make your job easier? So spectator mode would be really top of our list in terms of things that would really help us out, being able to go into third-party view, being able to do views of the battlefield and how the game's progressing, how the pilots are using the various different bits of terrain and scenery, stuff like that. That would be incredibly powerful for us. Another question, have the teams shown any tactics in the last 2 games that would suggest a strategy for game 3? I really think that they're going to try and start dominating the control points, but you really need to be excellent at both the control points and the kills if you're going to succeed in this. So looking at match 3, we've managed to get some of the stream back up. So on this one, it started off as a fairly even match, but it has started to drift again in favor of the EU. We're looking at the EU locking down both control points A and C across the Forge map, which is a map where you've got both basically an asteroid field that's full of mining frigates, and you've got a Rorcal there, which is a kind of mining capital ship.
As to how you can tell what the scores are, while you're watching them in stream, next to the capacitor on the left hand side, just in front of that, is it'll say drone and it'll say A, B and C, and that tells you which points they're holding, and underneath that's the resource counter. As I said, blue's always friendly and red's always your opposition, so you're always on the top bar for you. So at present it says 48, so that means they've still got 48 ships that they can fly before ending. The other team's sitting at 14, so they've only got 14 ships left that they can fly before obviously the game ends and you get a clear winner.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. Another question that popped up is the difference between the various different ships. So fighter ships are much more nimble, much more agile. They can go faster. They don't pack as much of a punch though. Heavies, by contrast, tend to hit a bit harder. They have weapons that can be tracked by using the Oculus Rift headset, so you just look at someone in order to aim rather than having to actually point your ship towards them. They also have a bit more armor, but they tend to be slower, less agile. And then you've got the support ships, which have options like being able to heal other players using the support beams, the armor repair beams, and stuff like that.
Yeah, for those who play EVE, the logistics or the support ships heal both the armor and the shield of a ship, as opposed to having to pick one or the other.
Yep. So it looks like the third match has just ended with the EU flying to victory yet again. We'll check with the folks and see if they want to fly for the remaining 2 matches as well, to see if the US can claw back some form of victory.
Yeah, definitely want that spectator mode. It'd make it a lot easier to commentate.
Definitely.
But they have said it's something they're really interested in getting.
Yep. So one of the things that the Valkyrie developers have set up is a discussion forum for ideas on new features. But they've also got they call it Trello, which is a board where they've got all of their planned features and player suggestions and so on and so forth currently laid out. And players can go along and vote on particular features, additions, components that they want to see added, so that the development team out in Newcastle can get an idea of what features should take priority, and they use that to influence their roadmap and what's going to be going live.
Yes, all pilots currently do use either a DK2 or a CV1, depending if they're lucky or not. They have said that they will support the Vive in PSVR but that'll be a little bit in the future. I don't believe the Vive has an actual release date for Valkyrie, but I believe it is in the pipework.
Yes, both the Vive and PSVR launches are in the pipeline, and interestingly, they're also incorporating cross-platform play as well. So we'll be able to see Oculus pilots fighting against Vive pilots, fighting against PSVR pilots, all on the same servers, which is going to be very, very interesting. Okay, cool. So we're going to go back with 1-5.
That's fine, we can focus fire and kill.
Who is in the middle?
Oh,
Gamer
EMP'd.
I'm on the heavy.
Okay. Who and 1-5 is we're currently in the middle of
I'm about to kill the support. Hold on, there you go.
I got the support.
Now, as you can see from 1-5's screen, he is currently playing for the Valkyrie. You can see the two different factions, the Valkyrie faction and the Garista's Fatal faction. You've got two different icons on the left-hand side of the screen underneath the drone counter.
An interesting point is it's the Garista's faction aren't actually Garistas, they're called Schism, which I believe is an offshoot of the Garistas. So it gives the Valkyrie devs a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to lore and stuff. I've been told it all has to be confirmed, obviously, by the lore guys in EVE if they're allowed to do it, but it does give them a little bit of leeway to maybe implement things that they couldn't normally do.
Yep, definitely.
And interestingly, on one stream just there, you saw these little bots on his thing. They're called spider mines, which I'm not 100% sure what ship. I'm sure Gazimov can tell you which ship, but it's you fly into them and they basically latch on and do damage.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ships that can deploy the spider mines. The trick is trying to position them in a place where you can create some kind of choke point, particularly where you've got control points, or particularly around your drones if you want to try and do that. With the spider mines, they create this kind of buckyball type hexagonal cube around it. So they're quite easy to spot and avoid if you want to, particularly if you've got a blue one which you don't really want to trigger because it's your allies, or if you see a red one and you really don't want to fly into it because it'll start eating away at your shields. But yeah, there are a couple of different ships that can deploy those spider mines, and they can be a bit of a nuisance.
Also, the interesting point is heavies. All the heavies have MWD on them, which is good for getting you out of trouble. But the fighters are actually fast enough to keep up with you while you're MWDing, or at least keep you in gun range, unless they go miles.
Yeah. So MWD, micro warp drive, very, very handy as a get out of jail, but there's no promises if you've got a bunch of fighters on your tail. One of the interesting things about Quantum Delta that you'll notice when he's flying compared to the other pilots is he's always keeping his radar in view. That radar, which you see the circular thing at the bottom of his cockpit, basically helps to track where other pilots are, particularly enemies. So he can always get an idea if someone's trying to get the drop on him, if there's something creeping up behind him, or so on and so forth.
I believe it also shows missiles, hostile missiles as well, do actually appear on your radar. So can help with the activation of ECM or your countermeasures if you're in a fire.
Yeah, definitely. And Quantum's one of those few people who tends to use the radar. I've noticed that other pilots tend to use the natural visibility looking at the cockpit. You see that with 1-5. He's much more of a pilot that looks around, tries to get a feel for the battlefield rather than relying on his radar sensors. It's an interesting difference in play, but and both have become very adept at it. I'm not sure if one works better than the other at the moment.
Also, who he was streamed earlier on the NT stream is Robot's very, very active with his head and looking around as well.
Yeah, it's you can easily tell who relies on the radar and who's relying on looking around and getting a feel around the canopy in the cockpit.